Okay, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're joining us from. Coach Kevin here, and let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want to go ahead and do is share my screen with you guys and point out a few things. For those of you who are brand new with us today, or possibly you're seeing this as a recording, not a future recording, it's recording right now, but a recording in the future. There you go. For those of you who are seeing us in the future, I want to point out that we have a Facebook group that coincides with our meetup. It has exactly the same name. I want to be really rich, and I do not apologize for it. And I would invite you to come join us here. Why would you want to come join us? A few different reasons. Reason number one, if we have any special announcements for the entire group, usually it's going to be pinned to the top. After that, as long as I remember to hit record each day, you will see right here that I go ahead and post the recordings of our Zoom meetings. So we're here Monday through Friday. And if you happen to miss a meeting and you want to get caught up with it, now you know where to go so you can get caught up. Also, let's say you attended a meeting and you really like it and you want to review it. Again, now you know where to go find the video. All right. It's also another place where you can ask questions and interact with us outside of the 45 minutes or so we have together each day. So just wanted to share that with you. The way to find us is to go into your Facebook profile, look for wherever it says search Facebook, and type in, I want to be really rich and I do not apologize for it, and ask to join us. The other way is you could go directly to facebook.com/groups/ I want to be really rich. Okay. Next thing I want to point out, the other thing that we have in here in the Facebook group is we also, from time to time, we're going through different materials in relationship to manifesting more money and wealth in our life. And sometimes those materials, if they're free out there on the internet, I actually like to point out to you where you can find it for yourself. So I do that each time. However, if it's not readily available that way, but it's something I have access to that I can share with you, then the other thing too is I put that file into the group so that you can access it. There you go. Lots of good reasons to join the Facebook group. All right. So we are in the process right now of going through a book written in the early 1900s by Neville Goddard called The Power of Awareness. Now, I actually own it on Kindle. I own it on Audible. I've read it multiple times. Very powerful, very, very enlightening, very helpful. And what I wanted to do, like I said, is see if I could find a free copy for you guys. So all I did was type in the name of the book in PDF, and I found one. I'm sure there's multiple, but here's the one that we're using in our group right now. I found it here. It says The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard dash the law of. Up here it says www.law-of-attraction-haven.com, and then a few other things. If you go ahead and click on that particular link that I just showed you, what will come up for you is this. Now, it won't come up on this page 36, which is where we're at, where we left off yesterday. It'll bring you to the first page. However, what's really kind of nice is I didn't have to put in a name, email address, or anything. And when it popped right up, I was able to just go into my function of download it onto my computer. And you guys can do the same. You can put on your computer, tablet, laptop, phone, whatever it is you're following along with. And if you don't choose to do that, or you choose to do it later, then what you can do is follow along. I'm going to keep it on here with screen share, at least while I'm reading it. Okay. So I'm going to be reading it and sharing commentary. Why are we in this book? Okay. Why was this a choice? Partly because intuitively and through inspiration, revelation, intuition, I felt that this was the next best step to take our group into. We've been going since November 5th, and everything's been going really well. We started off with a book by Wallace Wattles called The Science of Getting Rich. That is another older book published in 1910. And that tells you exactly the formula to manifest more money and wealth in your life, as well as to manifest a lot of other good things too. But it is geared towards money and wealth, just like our Facebook group is, just like our meetup group is. The next thing we went into was a book that is written much more recently called Hidden Treasures, written by an author by the name of Leslie Householder, who is actually a good friend of mine. And that book, Hidden Treasures, goes into not just the law of attraction, which, by the way, is a secondary law to the law of vibration. It is actually part of the law of vibration, but there are actually 7 different laws that we need to be aware of, specifically in relationship to manifesting more money and wealth in our life. These are universal laws, and Hidden Treasures, we went through that. So we're understanding the formula for becoming wealthy. We're understanding now the laws of the universe and how they function. After that, we went into a Reader's Digest version of the law of attraction called It Works. After that, we went ahead and took an article that was written by somebody who's my coach and mentor, has been. I hired Bob Proctor to be my coach once upon a time, and I've also been a coach for his programs. Now I'm independent. But I took an article that was given to me called Decision, and we went through that. Very important stuff. All right. After that, we went into a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Why did we do that? We did it because the laws of the universe are always functioning. If anybody thinks that the law of attraction doesn't work, that's like saying gravity doesn't work. You can't, there's no on-off button for gravity. All right. Now we can obey laws that allow us to fly, hunks of metal through the air in what we call jet airplanes and airliners and whatnot, carrying people across the world. But that's because there are different laws being obeyed that allows an airplane to stay in flight. Okay. But if it didn't have the propulsion and the shape that it has, it would drop. Matter of fact, it probably wouldn't have got up in the first place. All right. There's no on-off button to the laws of the universe. So when you learn how they work and you're trying to make it work for you, you're trying to be as obedient as you possibly can to get the benefit and the results that you want, and you're still struggling to have that happen, then what you know 100% for sure is that your subconscious mind, you have a conscious and a subconscious mind. Some people could say you even have a third. Don't worry about that for these purposes. Your subconscious mind has a program running in it. Actually, it has more than one. It has multiple, probably, programs running in it that are in opposition to you receiving what it is you truly want in your life. So when you go off and set a goal to have something happen and you're trying to make it happen, okay, which, by the way, you're going to find as we go through more of our study that you don't make much happen. You do take action, you take inspired action, and you must take this inspired action. You can't just sit there in the lotus position all day long. You will take action, but when you're trying to force things to happen, it doesn't work. And your subconscious mind will sabotage you all the time if there's a program in opposition to you receiving whatever it is that you've set your goal to receive or the intention to receive in your life. So by understanding how the subconscious mind works, how it got programmed in the first place, how it functions, and how to reprogram it, now we're on our way to better results. And then now we are in this book, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. Why did I choose this one? Because this one tells you about who you are and how you work. Okay. This is how you interact with God in the universe. This is how you go about receiving what it is that you truly want and understanding what power you have available within yourself to manifest what you want in your life. So that is why we're doing this one right now. I am going to, in a moment here, I'm just going to hop in and start reading, share a commentary where I feel it's appropriate and or helpful. And then what we're going to do is give you time. We like to save about 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of what we're doing to give you time to share what you want to share and ask whatever questions you want to ask. I tell you this now because if you go start typing into chat trying to ask me questions, I'm not paying any attention to it. Okay. We purposely set aside the time for the interaction with each other. And what you'll do when the time is appropriate is you'll come off mute, and then you can ask whatever you want. So if you got a burning question, write it down. So if you don't want to forget it, and that'll be your opportunity to do that when the time is right. Okay, I'm going to get myself a sip of water, kind of rearrange how I'm sitting here for a moment, be a little bit more comfortable, and then we'll get started. Chapter 19, Essentials. The essential points in the successful use of the law of assumption are these. First and above all, yearning, longing, intense, burning desire. Let me repeat this. The essential points in the successful use of the law of assumption are these. First and above all, yearning, longing, intense, burning desire. With all your heart, you must want to be different from what you are. Intense, burning desire, combined with intention to make good, is the mainspring of action, the beginning of all successful ventures. In every great passion which achieves its objective, desire is concentrated and intentioned. You must first desire, then intend to succeed. As the heart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Here the soul is interpreted as the sum total of all you believe, think, feel, and accept as true. In other words, your present level of awareness. God, I am, is the power of awareness, the source and fulfillment of all desire. Understood psychologically, I am an infinite series of levels of awareness, and I am what I am in accordance with where I am in the series. This quotation describes how your present level of awareness longs to transcend itself. Righteousness is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. Second, cultivate physical immobility, a physical incapacity, not unlike state described by Keats in his Ode to a Nightingale. A drowsy numbness pains my senses, as though a hemlock I had drunk. It is a state akin to sleep, but one in which you are still in control of the direction of attention. You must learn to induce this state at will, but experience has taught that it is more easily induced after a substantial meal or when you wake in the morning feeling very loath to arise. Then you are naturally disposed to enter this state. The value of physical immobility exposes itself in the accumulation of mental force, which absolute stillness brings with it. It increases your power of concentration. Be still and know that I am God. In fact, the greater energies of the mind seldom break forth, save when the body is stilled and the door of senses closed to the objective or outer world. Okay, let me repeat that, because we're all trying so hard to do things. In fact, the greater energies of the mind seldom break forth, save when the body is stilled and the door of the senses, right, our five senses, our outer sensing, closed to the objective, the outer world. The third and last thing to do is to experience in your imagination what you would experience in reality had you achieved your goal. You must gain it in imagination first, for imagination is the very door to the reality of that which you seek. But use imagination masterfully and not as an onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. Imagine that you possess a quality or something you desire which hitherto has not been yours. Surrender yourself completely to this feeling until your whole being is possessed by it. This state differs from reverie in this respect. It is the result of a controlled imagination and a steadied, concentrated attention, whereas reverie is the result of uncontrolled imagination, usually just a daydream. In the controlled state, a minimum of effort suffices to keep your consciousness filled with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The physical and mental immobility of this state is a powerful aid to voluntary attention and a major factor of minimum effort. The application of these 3 points: desire, physical immobility, the assumption of the wish fulfilled, is the way to at one ment or union with your objective. The first point is thinking of the end with intention to realize it. The third point is thinking from the end with the feeling of accomplishment. The secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being it. The minute you make it pleasurable and imagine that you are it, you start thinking from the end. One of the most prevalent misunderstandings is that this law works only for those having a devout or religious objective. This is a fallacy. It works just as impersonally as the law of electricity works. It can be used for greedy, selfish purposes as well as noble ones. But it should always be borne in mind that ignoble thoughts and actions inevitably result in unhappy consequences. Chapter 20, Righteousness. In the preceding chapter, righteousness was defined as the consciousness of already being what you want to be. This is the true psychological meaning and obviously does not refer to adherence to moral codes, civil law, or religious precepts. You cannot attach too much importance to being righteous. In fact, the entire Bible is permeated with admonition and exhortations on this subject. Break off thy sins by righteousness. My righteousness I hold fast, and I will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I live. My righteousness shall answer for me in time to come. Very often the words sin and righteousness are used in the same quotation. This is a logical contrast of opposites and becomes enormously significant in the light of the psychological meaning of righteousness and the psychological meaning of sin. Sin means to miss the mark, not to attain your desire, not to be the person you want to be, is sinning. Righteousness is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. It is a changeless educative law that effects must follow causes. Only by righteousness can you be saved from sinning. There is a widespread misunderstanding as to what it means to be saved from sin. The following example will suffice to demonstrate this misunderstanding and to establish the truth. A person living in abject poverty may believe that by means of some religious or philosophical activity, he can be saved from sin, and his life improved as a result. If, however, he continues to live in the same state of poverty, it is obvious that what he believed was not true, and in fact, he was not saved. On the other hand, he can be saved by righteousness. The successful use of the law of assumption would have the inevitable result of an actual change in his life. He would no longer live in poverty. He would no longer miss the mark. He would be saved from sin. Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven. Scribes and Pharisees mean those who are influenced and governed by the outer appearances, the rules and customs of the society in which they live, the vain desire to be thought well of by other men. Unless this state of mind is exceeded, your life will be one of limitation, of failure to attain your desires, of missing the mark, of sin. This righteousness is exceeded by true righteousness, which is always the consciousness of already being that which you want to be. One of the greatest pitfalls in attempting to use the law of assumption is focusing your attention on things. on a new home, a better job, a bigger bank balance. This is not righteousness without which you die in your sins. Righteousness is not the thing itself. It is the consciousness, the feeling of already being the person you want to be, of already having the thing you desire. Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment here. Go back and read some of it. One of the greats, so you're like, hold it, you told me I should visualize what I want. Okay. One of the greatest pitfalls in attempting to use the law of assumption is focusing your attention on things, outer things, guys and gals, focusing on the outer, looking at the car, the house, and everything. That is fine. That's okay. But that's not how you make it happen. Okay, focusing your attention on things, on a new home, a better job, a bigger bank balance, because that's outward. This is not the righteousness without which you die in your sins. Righteousness is not the thing itself. It is the consciousness. This is inner. This is inner. This is inner. Let me repeat. This is inner. The feeling of already being the person you want to be, of already having the thing you desire. That is what you focus on. That is what you visualize. That is what you feel. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, the inner, and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Let me repeat. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, the inner, and his righteousness, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and all these things shall be added unto you. The kingdom, entire creation of God, your I am, is within you. Righteousness is the awareness that you already possess it all. Free will, chapter 21. The question is often asked, what should be done between the assumption? I love this, guys. I love this. I love this. I love this. Man, you guys really, truly need to understand and get this part. So if you weren't paying attention before, please pay attention now. Okay. The question is often asked, what should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and its realization? Nothing. Let me repeat. The question is often asked, what should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and its realization? Nothing. It is a delusion that other than assuming the feeling, you can do anything to aid the realization of your desire. Might be a little fight going on inside right now, maybe, right? It is a delusion that other than assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you can do anything to aid the realization of your desire. It's not until you receive through inspiration, revelation, intuition, right, the direction you need to go, the action you need to take. But running around trying to do your thing to help God do his, trust me, he does not need our help in that way. You think that you can do something, you want to do something, but actually you can do nothing. The illusion of the free will is to do is but ignorance of the law of assumption upon which all action is based. Everything happens automatically. All that befalls you, all that is done by you happens. Your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. To understand the law of assumption, to be convinced of its truth, means getting rid of all the illusions about free will to act. Free will actually means freedom to select any idea you desire. By assuming the idea already to be fact, it is converted into reality. By assuming the idea already to be a fact, it is converted into reality. Beyond that, Free will ends and everything happens in harmony with the concept assumed. I can of my own self do nothing, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. In this quotation, the Father obviously refers to God. In an earlier chapter, God is defined as I am. Since creation is finished, the Father is never in a position of saying, I will be. In other words, everything exists. The infinite I am consciousness can speak only in present tense. Not my will, but thine be done. I will be is a confession that I am not. The Father's will is always I am. Until you realize that you are the Father, in a sense, okay, like him, there is, and things respond to you like they respond to him. There is only one I am, and your infinite self is that I am. Your will is always I will be. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being is the Father's will. The mere wish without the consciousness is the my will. Let me repeat that. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being is the Father's will. That's what he requires for us to have what we want. The mere wish without this consciousness is the my will. This great quotation, so little understood, is a perfect statement of the law of assumption. It is impossible to do anything. You must be in order to do. It is impossible to do anything. You must be in order to do. You must assume yourself to be, do, and have what it is that you truly want. If you had a different concept of yourself, everything would be different. If you had a different concept of yourself, everything would be different. You are what you are, so everything is as it is. The events which you observe are determined by the concept you have of yourself. If you change your concept of yourself, the events ahead of you in time are altered. But, thus altered, they form again a deterministic sequence starting from the moment of this changed concept. You are a being with powers of intervention which enable you, by a change of consciousness, to alter the course of observed events, in fact, to change your future. You are a being with powers of intervention which enable you, by a change of consciousness, to alter the course of observed events, in fact, to change your future. Deny the evidence of the senses. Deny the evidence of the senses. Deny the evidence of your senses and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Inasmuch as your assumption is creative and forms an atmosphere, your assumption, if it be a noble one, increases your assurance and helps you to reach a higher level of being. If, on the other hand, your assumption be an unlovely one, it hinders you and makes your downward way swifter. Just as the lovely assumptions create a harmonious atmosphere, so the hard and bitter feelings create a hard and bitter atmosphere. Whatsoever things are pure, just, lovely, of good report, think on these things. This means to make your assumptions the highest, noblest, happiest concepts. There's no better time to start than now. The present moment is always the most opportune in which to eliminate all unlovely assumptions and to concentrate only on the good. Let me repeat, the present moment, now's the time. The present moment is always the most opportune in which to eliminate all unlovely assumptions and to concentrate only on the good. As well as yourself, claim for others their divine inheritance. See only their good and the good in them. Stir the highest in others to confidence and self-assertion by your sincere assumption of their good, and you will be their prophet and their healer, for an inevitable fulfillment awaits all sustained assumptions. You win by assumption what you can never win by force. An assumption is a certain motion of consciousness. This motion, like all motion, exercises an influence on the surrounding substance, causing it to take the shape of, echo, and reflect the assumption. A change of fortune is a new direction and outlook, merely a change in arrangement of the same mind substance, consciousness. If you would change your life, you must begin at the very source with your own basic concept of self. Outer change, becoming part of organizations, political bodies, religious bodies, is not enough. The cause goes deeper. The essential change must take place in yourself, in your own concept of self. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. For the reality of your assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact and will clothe itself in flesh if you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you know what assumptions, if persisted in, or when you know that assumptions persisted in, harden into facts, then events which seem to the uninitiated mere accidents will be understood by you to be the logical and inevitable effects of your assumption. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. You can create nothing, but your assumption determines what portion of creation you will experience. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. You can create nothing, but your assumption determines what portion of creation you will experience. Okie dokie, this is a good place for us to pop out of here. And hey, there's more people, a few more people anyhow. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Everybody looks like they've been here before, so I don't need to go into the spiel of what we're going to be doing. Now is your time to share and ask questions, so go ahead.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Betsy.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you, they're always saying about having assumptions that we're supposed to have. So what of being what we want to be. So what would that be exactly?
Okay, I could put it another way. It's the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And here's, I'll give you an example outside of ourselves. I think I kind of said this yesterday, but we come into situations and we come across people. And we really shouldn't do this, but we do. we see the way a person, expresses himself, or we hear better yet, a friend or a person we know tells us about someone else. And we only get our friend's perspective, and they don't have the whole picture. And then we start making up stories about the person in our mind, and then we run with those stories, and we assume that's what the person's like. Or we assume that's what their marriage is like, or we assume that's what their financial life is like. We assume they're happy or they're unhappy. We are always assuming. Every time we have a negative thought that something bad is going to happen to us, that's assumption.
Mm-hmm.
That's assumption. So if assumption ultimately, if it's persisted in repetitively, right, it comes to pass. So assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to say, okay, that's interesting. So what you're telling me, Kevin, not Neville, okay, right? So what you're telling me is I have the ability to use my imagination, since I use it all the time anyway, by the way, again, you are using your imagination. You're just using it against yourself usually. I don't mean you, Betsy, specific, right? but just in general, that's what people do, right? Because of our programming to look for the negative. So we have these assumptions about things and people and whatever's going on, but it's truly our imagination, because we don't actually know, because most of the time what we're thinking about hasn't happened yet anyway. We're just trying to project, we're assuming, we're telling ourselves stories, we're using our imagination to make up stuff, so that, because we like to do that. Well, since we're good at that, we're already pretty good at it. We do it regularly. What he's saying is use it to your benefit instead of as sin, and sin not meaning necessarily like murder, stuff like that, right? But instead of using it against ourselves and not receiving what we want, let's use it in righteousness. Let's actually choose to use our imagination, and let's create assumptions that would serve us in living the life we really want to live. So if we're sitting there in abject poverty, right, that is because of an assumption. That's because of a story. And we stay there because of our imagination and programming. How do we get out of it? How did anybody get out of it that started off that way? They had to change their concept of themselves. They probably started originally by daydreaming. That's not with a lot of intention. So it's not especially powerful. But then it moved on to, hey, I'm living in the slums. I don't have money. Blah, 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 blah. But Johnny got a basketball scholarship to go play college ball. And then he got really good and he got drafted by an NBA team, and now he earns millions of dollars. What if I became a phenomenal basketball player myself? I'm this little kid. I see poverty all around me. I want out of poverty. And I choose, I'm not saying it's the only way they can do it, but they're making an assumption that if I got good enough at playing basketball, then I might get a scholarship. I might get to go to college. And if I'm really, really good at that level too, maybe I'll end up in the pros. Or as nowadays, some people go straight from high school to pro. But my point of it is all imagination and it's all assumption. That's all we're doing constantly.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Ah, you're very welcome. You guys could let me off the hook.
I got something to say. I was going to say,
okay.
Practically every day, it's just really wonderful how this is helping me to daydream and reinforce positive things, especially with work. And I know God has helped me he's like shut every door to every possibility except the insurance, which is weird, coming from a nurse practitioner background. So
I don't know that he should, but just FYI, I don't know. He may be trying to focus you, but I don't know.
Well, it was pretty focused. It was pretty, it was like it was a laser beam into this field. And so anyway, I got my packet for insurance now. I do get benefits with this. And I thought I had to pay for benefits, and I don't have to pay for the benefits. I talked to my manager, and they're not going to take out any of the money that was given to me because I used it to pay all my bills. But I'm in a negative balance with New York Life, and it's going to be made up. And I said, well, Steve, it's okay, because we're going to get lots of clients in February. We didn't get any in January, and that's okay. We're going to make it up in February. I'm still learning. And the process is going out and meeting more people and having a wonderful attitude about who I work for and what I do. And that negative balance is going to be doubled in positivity. And I keep reinforcing the fact that our summit meeting, I'm going to be eligible for that, is going to be in Washington, D.C. And that is, you know, one of my things I put up on my mirror in the bathroom is going to Washington, D.C. And I'm very excited about that. And I'm imagining that. And the clients are loving me, you know, and people are loving me. And I'm reaching out to so many people and helping so many people. So this imagination thing is just my thing. I just, yeah,
Awesome.
Betsy, it's I could cry. It just makes me so much happier.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This is Steph.
Hi, Steph.
In the righteousness, the chapter on righteousness,
Uh-huh.
when they were talking about not visualizing things, and I know you paused there and you made an emphasis on it, but what came to my mind and was kind of contradicting with what I felt was being read, and I was trying to kind of combine the two together, was when you read Secret, the gentleman that wrote the book, Chicken Soup for the Soul.
The soul, uh-huh.
He visualized, he had he had a bill that he wrote like $1 million on, right?
Right, and he stuck it above his bed, uh-huh.
So isn't that kind of visualizing a thing as like,
okay.
that contradict kind of?
No, it's not contradictory. You got it, and this is one thing I love Jack Canfield, and I love the part he has in The Secret. You have to pay attention though to everything he says for it to actually come together. All right. He did that as a reminder of the $1 million. So it was meant as a reminder, but what he did, and this is what he talks about. He said, I put it up there as a reminder. Then what I did each day is I imagined myself living the lifestyle of someone. He started out wanting 100,000. That's what it started out as. So he put 100,000 above his bed. He said, did that as a reminder each day of what his goal was, which Bob Proctor talks about that too. Write your goal on a goal card, right? And those are just going to be typically a few words. But now you got to create, the words have to associate itself and lock itself into a vision of what you want to be, do, or have, or about yourself. So he put that out there, but then the next thing he said, so he could have gone in reverse of this and it would have worked just fine. And he wouldn't have even had to set the goal for money specifically, because it wasn't the money goal that got him there, but it helped focus him a little bit. He said, then what I did is each day I visualized myself living $100,000 lifestyle, because he'd never had that before. Okay.
So visualizing yourself driving the nice car, living in the nice house.
He visualized his life the way he wanted it. And then he said, and nothing really, but everybody get this, okay? It's different amounts of time for different things for everybody. And not much happened for 90 days. I didn't have any great ideas. I didn't have this. I didn't have that, blah, blah, blah. He said that flat out. Like nothing really happened for the 90 days. But he trusted his mentor, because his mentor, very similar to Bob Proctor's, told him this is what you need to do. So he just trusted the process. And he said, and then he was in, some grocery store checkout line, and the National Enquirer caught his eye. And he thought to himself, there's this thing I wrote. And, if it was in like the National Enquirer or whatever, I could probably sell so many copies. Funny enough, that's what he thought. It didn't have to be National Enquirer necessarily, but that's what came to him. He said, and then I went to another city or something, and I did a lecture. And what happened at that lecture is a lady came up and she said, I really liked it. I'd like to do an article on you. He goes, who do you write for? She goes, well, I mostly, I write for whoever, but I mostly freelance and do work for the National Enquirer. And that's where he was like, do, 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 do. Remember that part in the movie where he's like, do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Right. So again, go back to, it wasn't the 100,000. The 100,000 was the reminder to think about what he wanted. It had to be connected to something. He couldn't have got all that excited or happy or manifested this if he was just focusing on $100,000, because it doesn't represent squat. It's what you want to be, do, and have that money would represent. So what would you actually be doing with that money? And that's why people, I want $1 million. No, you don't. Yeah, you think you do. But if you had $1 million, very few of you know how to go spend it today. I'm not saying, I'll just buy a house that's $1 million. Okay, whatever, right? But the point is, most people haven't thought about, well, what if the million came in monthly? Most of you guys are like, I'm having trouble with my 300 list because I don't want anything. Okay, well then God's not going to give you anything. That's God in the universe says, then you're good to go, right? Because you're not willing to ask. Well, because you think it might be taking away from somebody else. No, it doesn't. The pie just gets bigger. We make a bigger pie. That's how we cannot take more than our fair share from the universe. It's impossible. What is our fair share? Whatever it is that we ask for. It doesn't run out. So that's
He
why.
is infinite.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. He is infinite.
Yes.
You know that?
Yes.
He owns it all. He is infinite. So it's infinite.
Yes.
I know it. I love this. This is awesome.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm excited today.
Okay. Did that help, Steph?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did I get what you needed? I guess is probably a better question.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was just focusing in too much on what he said and not thinking about the big picture of what he had said. So that did help.
And I don't know how many times people bring up what you said. You know, it's natural. They think it's that check thing that they wrote. You know, it's that piece of paper they put words on that did it. No, there's not a magic piece of paper. You have to internalize.
It's the feeling.
Yeah.
Over and over, and you've been saying the feeling of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. The feeling of the wish fulfilled. Any other questions or comments today?
You guys put up, I mean, I'm putting up on little yellow pieces of paper in my bedroom because that's where I spend a lot of time. I mean, it helps me to put it up on my bathroom mirror.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what you're talking about. That's what that guy did. And for this, I didn't listen to all of it. I remember hearing some of what he did from the Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
Was it $1 million bill?
No, he started with $1,000 check, and then after
a check that he wrote
to himself.
Okay, well, let me get one out.
By the way, Jim Carrey did the same thing, $10 million for acting services rendered, and then it was Dumb and Dumber that paid him the 10 million bucks. So.
Okay, kids.
But again, it's not staring at the check. That's where I don't want everybody to go off and start staring at pieces of paper and thinking that's going to work. It's what he had to visualize receiving the money and what he was going to do with the money. Or there's not really much use for the money. God doesn't.
Yes. So you have to dream bigger. That's right. So I am having trouble with my list, but then as you're talking, and I'm so sorry, guys, I'm excited today. I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, but I'm thinking, wow, I want a new bicycle, maybe a motorcycle, you know, learn how to do motorcycle, maybe take some lessons in a foreign language. You know, there's all kinds of things that are popping into my brain that I wanted to do.
Write them down. Write them down.
I know.
Write them down. Write them down.
It's awesome. You're awesome, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Everybody on here is awesome.
Okay.
Gotta know that.
Any other? So Paula, totally appreciate your comments and your attitude and everything. Okay. I'm sharing something. I hope you take this the right way. Some people, everybody on here has a different personality. So some are right. And some people, if you do what you're doing right now without kind of taking your turn, what they're going to do is they're going to hop off the call. And then I lose 3 or 4 or 5 people that wanted it, but they're like, hey, I'm not getting what I need to get out of it. So I'm not going to be here anymore. Okay. Perfect. I'm not saying specific today, but in general, you know, they've got questions, they've got their lives to live, they've got their worries and concerns, and they want to change and they want to hear answers. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? There's some of you I haven't heard from in a while. I was just hoping a few more of you would speak up and just share because I like you. So anyhow, all right. We will call it a wrap for the day. And I look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Coach Kevin.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a good one.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
You're all very, very, very welcome.